Hi, this is Jason Banker from LumosConsulting. Welcome back for video 5 of the ACI initial build, interface and switch profiles. Let's go ahead and get started. So the first thing we're going to have to do here, we just created our policies and policy groups. We now need to talk about our switches and ports, right? So first thing we're going to do is we are going to create VPC pairs between our switches. In this video, we have 6 leafs. Leaf 101, 102, 103, 104, 105, and 106 are each going to be pairs depicted by the red box. We have to go ahead and tell ACI these switches are pairs. This is a one-time thing. It's like doing the VPC within an NXOS CLI. One thing we don't have to do is the domain, the peer link. That is all done internal for us, but we do have to go ahead and pair the switches. Next on the list is switch and interface profiles. So switch and interface profiles are very simple. We like to look at it as you build one profile per switch and one profile per VPC pair. So in our lab we have 2 leafs, leaf 101 and 102. We will create an interface and switch profile leaf 101, leaf 102, and then we will create a VPC leaf 101 and 102. Right? So if you have 6 switches in your environment, you will have 6 individual interface profiles and 3 VPC interface profiles. So again, keep the naming simple, keep it standard, and this allows us to add ports to these individual switches with policy groups. When we're going and adding ports, one of the things we want to talk about is our naming, our descriptions, right? We like to name our ports what the port is. So if it's port 11, we're going to use port 11. And we're gonna assign a policy group to it. We'll assign a description. What this allows us to do, if we decom a server in the process, we can just assign another policy group and change the description rather than deleting the interface selector and recreating it. And the other thing is we do not use ranges, right? We don't want to break the range. If we have a 4-port range and then one of the servers gets decommed, we don't have to break that range, right? So again, do individual interface selectors, not ranges. And let's go ahead and get started with the configuration. So if we hop back into our APIC, again, we are going to fabric access policies. First, we want to pair our switches, so we're going to go to policies and switch, and we want to go to our virtual port channel default. We'll start with VPC domain. Never touch it. This is a default. It's the peer dead interval. Never have to configure anything here. You could change the peer dead interval. I usually do not touch it. I do go to virtual port channel default, right? What we're going to do is here we're going to come in and pair switches. So we're going to name this VPC leaf 101, 102. I usually give it the ID of the first switch, 101, right? The VPC domain policy will be default, and we'll select our switches. So this one's going to be switch 1 and 2. This is going to pair it up. We would do this for every pairing we have in our environment. As you can see, we received another virtual VTEP that when we did the APIC build, we assigned a VTEP address. The VPC gets its own. We want one IP that we're hitting in case one of the switches go down while communication is taking place, and we can continue to forward traffic. We don't want to use the individual VTEP because if that switch goes down, we won't know what the other member's VTEP is. So you can see a virtual IP. If you receive that, your pairing is successful. We can go ahead and close this. We want to go back into interfaces. We want to go to leaf interfaces. We want to go to profiles. So what we're going to do here is we're going to go ahead and create an interface profile. We will name this guy leaf 101. We're not going to add any selectors right now. We will create leaf 102. Now understand, while I'm doing this, we are just naming switches. We haven't assigned them to any switches yet, but this is where we'll be putting ports in, but you'll see where it ties together here in a second. So VPC leaf 101, 102, right? So I have 2 switches in my environment. I'm going to have one individual interface profile and one VPC. We want to go up to our switches, leaf switches. We want to do the same thing. So under the profiles, we want to do leaf 101. We're going to grab our leaf selector. We can also name this leaf 101. We have our blocks. We're going to select leaf 101. We do not need a policy group assigned to a switch. We're going to hit next, and the next thing we have to do is assign the interface selector profile, what we just created earlier, to this switch. So the tie-in is we have a profile, leaf 101. This is where we would assign a port. Underneath the leaf switch, we have a profile, right? And we assign the interface selector. So we're assigning this to this, and the port tied to this will be assigned here. Now, this is a one-time thing. The only time you ever really have to touch a switch profile again is if you add a new switch or pair of switches into your environment. You will really be creating policy groups and working in your leaf interfaces. All right, so let's go ahead and finish this out. We're going to create leaf 102. We'll select our switch. We'll update, we'll hit next. We got to assign the interface selector profile, leaf 102. All right, and then we're going to do one for our VPC pair. So we'll call this VPC, leaf 101, 102. We'll grab our leaf selector. We can even just copy this. We grab both switches this time. Update, next, and now we're going to grab this profile. So now we have our switch profiles that are tied to an interface profile down here. We are done up here. So now that we have leaf 101, if we wanted to configure port 1 on leaf 101, we would come into our leaf selector. Right. Our recommendation here is name it the port, so we'll do port -1, 1/1 is the interface. Right, and we're going to assign a policy group. Let's just say this is going to be a trunk. We'll assign a trunk here, hit submit. Right, we can reopen this back up. I'm going to give a description under the interface itself. We're going to call this test server. I will show you where this shows up. So we'll do test server. Right, and now if we're going to do one for VPC, the rule here is that if I use port 10, I have to use port 10 on leaf 101 and 102. There are ways around it. Don't recommend trying to figure it out. If we're gonna create a VPC to switch leaf 101 and 102, let's use both port 10 on both. Right, so we're using port 10. We're going to assign our VPC profile, and you're going to hit submit. We can open this back up. We will add we'll just say VPC test host. So great. So once we have a port, a device plugged into one of these ports, we have link light up. We'll go take a look in a minute. You're just passing layer 1. We haven't done anything until we start doing some stuff in the logical constructs. We will show you that in another video series. But now this has layer 1 up. We can pass VLANs as long as we do some things again in the logical constructs, right? But we did create leaf interfaces. Typically under interfaces and your leaf interfaces, you're going to have profiles and policy groups. This is really where you're going to be working a majority of your time from a hardware standpoint. Right, we're going to create a port, put it under the correct leaf, assign the port, assign a policy group. This is another place I go to for troubleshooting. If they're telling me port 10 is not up, I come into port 10 and make sure there is a policy group assigned. If we go into inventory, we'll look at leaf 101. We take a look at leaf 101 from an interface high level. If we look at port 10, we'll go ahead and change the view. If we look at port 10, I have no ports down. I mean, all my ports are down. It's a simulator. I can't pass traffic, but this would be up. But you can see the description I added now shows up here. That's the only place that will put that here. It will also tell me the speed we used. If you remember, we selected 10 gigs hard-coded, right? If I look at port 1, we have a test server here. The inherit speed, we were using auto here. Right, so it will show link up. This is just a simulator thing again, but this is where we will determine what's up. You can also come through here and see what's under an individual interface. what VLANs are configured. So if we click on 1.1, it will break it down from it's typical to a show interface, E whatever setting on an NXOS. If we take a look at here, we will see what the settings are. We can just see where it's deployed, what VLANs are assigned to it, what faults. So you can take a deep dive here. But typically, we want to see link up. Once we link up, we can move on to the logical section. Appreciate you guys taking the time to watch these videos. Hope you've learned something. If you have any questions or comments, please leave them below. Thanks a lot, and see you in